This certification confirms your competence to manage events successfully to international standards. To be eligible for accreditation, candidates must have at least 2 years of practical experience managing events. The assessment criteria of this accreditation are aligned with UK National Occupation Standards for the events industry and ASEAN MICE standards. The benefits of this accreditation include international recognition of your expertise, alignment of your expertise with UK and ASEAN standards, enhanced professional credibility, career advancement opportunities, and validation of your practical experience. The APIEM Certified Event Manager is awarded by the UK Event Industry Academy, a registered educational services company in the United Kingdom, which offers internationally recognized certifications in events management. This certification program confirms your competency to manage events successfully, covering event organization, people management, leadership, maintaining stakeholder relationships, health, safety, and security management, emergency planning, and event evaluation. This certification evaluates your competency across 13 comprehensive assessment criteria, covering different aspects of professional event management. Your accreditation is based on a portfolio of evidence that you produce to show your practical experience of managing events. The portfolio will include written text, documents, photo images, diagrams, and videos that illustrate your experience as an events manager. To become accredited, you have to pass all 13 assessment criteria by providing evidence in your portfolio how you meet each assessment criteria. Resubmission of failed components is permitted to achieve certification. Each of these assessment criteria will now be explained. Assessment Criterion 1. Organize the setup and breakdown of events. You need to demonstrate your ability to coordinate the technical and logistical aspects of event build and DIRIG phases. This criterion evaluates your planning, sequencing, and problem-solving capabilities when organizing the setup and breakdown of an event. The evidence you can provide to demonstrate your competence includes ingress and build schedules for the staging of the event, site plans showing staging, crowd management routes, and the power infrastructure locations, AV technology locations and setup, the location and installation of appropriate barriers and fencing, registration facilities for participants, and event signage. Also, what are the processes for egress and vacating the venue? The type of events that you manage will determine the type of evidence you submit for the assessment criteria. If the events you manage are indoors, at purpose-built event venues, the evidence for this type of event will be very different to events staged outdoors, for example in public spaces and parks. To pass, you will have demonstrated your ability to plan and sequence build and DIRIG activities, coordinate suppliers and crews effectively, identified and managed risks during setup and breakdown, provided reflective insight into challenges and solutions. For Assessment Criterion 2, coordinate an event, show how you manage competing priorities and coordinate multiple stakeholders throughout the event lifecycle. This criterion focuses on your organizational and communication skills. The evidence you provide to demonstrate how you meet this criterion will be determined by the type of events you manage. For example, you could include your overall event plan or operations manual, the event run sheet, and show flow documents, examples of how you communicate with your event team and the stakeholder coordination plans. Other valid evidence could include your vendor coordination documents, and documents to show how you liaise with venues and authorities. Provide as much evidence as you can to show that you are competent at coordinating events. Provide a narrative that explains the evidence and how it relates to the successful management of events that you stage. To pass, you will have demonstrated your ability to coordinate multiple stakeholders, your expertise to use appropriate planning and communication tools, and how you maintain operational oversight of the entire event. Assessment Criterion 3 relates to your expertise in managing the running of an event. As the event manager, you are responsible for all aspects of running the live event. What procedures do you follow to authorize the start of the event, and to inform the event crew that everything is in order for the event to start? Under what circumstances will you intervene if the event has to be stopped when it is actually running? How do you inform participants about any special aspects of the event that they need to be aware of before the event starts, and during the event, especially emergency evacuation procedures? During the event, how do you oversee your key personnel? Which communication methods do you use to monitor the smooth running of the event? If a problem occurs during the event, how do you intervene to minimize its impact? What mitigation procedures do you follow? You need to prove your capability to manage live events in real time. The evidence for this criterion could be quite varied, for example, event run sheets, protocols that your event team have to follow on the day of the event, such as communication protocols in the event of an emergency occurring. If during a live event you had to change some aspect of the staging of the event, explain what occurred, for example if there was a power cut, or the live streaming technology failed. How did you respond? What did you do? You also might have had to manage the impact of a natural disaster occurring during your event, for example an earthquake. What procedures did you follow to maintain the health and safety of your event stakeholders? Provide a number of examples of how you have successfully managed the running of a live event. To pass, you have to demonstrate your competence to manage live operations effectively, make timely decisions under pressure, how you have responded appropriately to changes or incidents, and demonstrated your situational awareness and control. Assessment Criterion 4 relates to managing people, an important role of the event manager. There will be different types of people to manage: your event permanent employees, temporary employees, vendors, representatives of key stakeholders, marshals, stewards, and volunteers. The principles for managing each type of event personnel will vary depending upon their employment status and their contract of employment. For this criterion, the focus is on temporary event staff such as stewards, marshals, and volunteers. To pass this criterion, you need to provide evidence of your expertise in managing your temporary event team. How you calculate the number of temporary employees that you need to stage your event. The recruitment and selection methods you implement to attract appropriately qualified temporary employees. The training program that is provided for them to enable them to undertake their roles. How you monitor their performance during the event. The steps you take if underperformance is identified. Finally, how you motivate and reward your temporary employees. To pass, you have to demonstrate your competence to plan stewarding, marshal, and volunteer structures and deployments. Brief and supervise stewards, marshals or volunteers, how you monitor their performance and motivate them. How you have managed incidents involving stewarding, marshalling, or volunteer personnel. How you ensure your temporary employees comply with safety and operational requirements. For Assessment Criterion 5, you will provide evidence of your ability to create effective working relationships with your event teams and event stakeholders. It is essential that the event teams and stakeholders work harmoniously together. If there are problems and issues with your event personnel, this will be a major distraction from undertaking the work of planning and managing the event successfully. You will need to explain in your portfolio of evidence your approach to establishing effective working practices with your event teams. How do you do it? It is likely that you will have clear structures in place for managing and monitoring the work of your teams. Undoubtedly, you will hold regular meetings to inform your teams about the event, their roles, and the progress that is being made to achieve the work tasks and activities. Collaborative planning with your teams helps to keep them motivated and focused on the jobs they have to do. The evidence you provide could include team or organizational charts, meeting agendas and minutes of meetings, collaborative planning documents, peer, client, or supervisor testimonials, emails demonstrating collaboration or issue resolution, and a reflective statement describing your relationship-building strategies. To pass, you have to provide evidence of your ability to communicate clearly and professionally, build trust and collaboration within the team, resolve issues constructively, and demonstrate your emotional intelligence and professionalism. This diagram helps to illustrate how a competent event manager uses a variety of skills and techniques to establish effective team relationships. Please reflect on these and compare them to your own management skills when working with members of your event planning team. As an event manager, you are leading teams of people to achieve a common goal, which is the successful staging of an event. Being a leader requires you to understand how you can influence your team members by the way that you act. Different stages of event planning and event management will require you to adopt and implement different leadership styles. There are many different views about leadership and leadership styles, and for your portfolio of evidence, you need to explain how your leadership style will change at different stages of the event lifecycle. Provide a written narrative text that provides examples of different leadership situations you have faced, and how your own leadership style has changed with these situations. At times, you will have to be an authoritarian leader, giving clear instructions. At other times, you will need to adopt a participatory style of leadership to encourage your event team to share their ideas and opinions. To pass this assessment criterion, you will need to demonstrate your ability to accept leadership responsibilities, take accountability for decisions, and provide direction and support to others. In summary, here are some more characteristics that contribute to an effective leadership style. Set and share objectives with your team, objectives that they can accept as being appropriate. Motivate and support your team members to achieve the objectives. Understand the behaviors and feelings of individuals, and if someone needs support, guidance, and help, provide it for them. Create a sense of common purpose. Always take responsibility to make things happen, be clear in your leadership actions, and use different leadership styles at different stages of the event lifecycle. Assessment Criterion 7 requires you to provide evidence that demonstrates your competence to maintain relationships with a variety of different event stakeholders when the event is finished. Maintaining relationships is essential, as you need to develop positive and constructive working relationships with your clients, participants, vendors, and other event stakeholders who you will probably want to work with again in the future when you stage your next event. The evidence for this criterion might include documents that demonstrate your commitment to maintaining post-event professional relationships, such as post-event follow-up emails or communications with your client, vendors, participants, and other event stakeholders. Client or vendor debrief records, testimonials from clients and participants, and repeat bookings from clients. To pass this criterion, you will have to write a reflective statement that explains the evidence you include in your portfolio to demonstrate your long-term, professional relationship management strategies that you implement with your event stakeholders. Assessment Criterion 8 requires you to demonstrate the proactive health and safety management strategies you implement throughout all event phases. This criterion is extremely important and evaluates your commitment to protecting from harm the participants, staff, and stakeholders. The evidence you should provide includes event risk assessments, method statements, and comprehensive safety plans for an event. Safety briefing documents you use to train your event team, and evidence of compliance with local regulations. You will pass this criterion if you can demonstrate that you have a safety management proactive strategy for all events you manage. This involves appropriate identification and assessment of risks. Implementing suitable control measures to reduce the likelihood of the risks occurring. Promoting a safety-focused culture with all your event stakeholders. When a risk assessment has been undertaken, it needs to be recorded in an official document that is shared with all event stakeholders. This is an example of a risk assessment document. The first column identifies hazards that could cause harm. The second column specifies what harm could be caused if the risk occurs. The people who will be affected by the risk are in column 3, before column 4 lists the control measures that have to be implemented to reduce the likelihood of the hazard causing harm. This is another example of a risk assessment document. On this document, a numerical system is used to assess the impact of the risk if it occurs, and the severity of that risk. This numerical system is commonly used when assessing the likelihood and severity of risks occurring. This diagram explains commonly held views on how health and safety can be prioritized. Firstly, undertake an initial risk assessment to identify potential risks at the venue that is hosting the event. Next, share the risk assessment with your event team and stakeholders to ensure that they fully understand the control measures that must be implemented to reduce the likelihood of harm from occurring. Thirdly, you need to motivate all event stakeholders to make health and safety a top priority. Ensure that all stakeholders follow and implement all safety protocols for the staging of the event. Finally, if a risk occurs that will cause harm, you need to take immediate action to address the risk and ensure that all stakeholders are safe. Assessment Criterion 9 requires you to show your ability to respond effectively under pressure when emergencies occur. This criterion evaluates your preparedness and decision-making in critical situations, such as a natural disaster occurring during your event, or a similar unexpected crisis that has impacted the smooth running of your event, and potentially puts in danger of harm your event stakeholders. Evidence you can include in your portfolio will be a combination of emergency response plans, incident logs, communications with emergency services, witness statements, post-incident reports, and a reflective account focusing on your decision-making under pressure. You will pass this criterion if you can demonstrate how you prepare for emergencies, how you have responded to previous emergencies that have occurred at one of your events, how you communicated with event stakeholders when you were under pressure, and by explaining what you learned about dealing with that emergency, and how this experience has developed your skills to handle emergencies. This diagram summarizes some of the key steps in dealing with an emergency at an event. Effective emergency management requires swift assessment and decisive action. Make an initial evaluation and report the incident to relevant people, such as the emergency services, following established procedures. Take immediate action to prevent loss, harm, or injury to any of the event stakeholders. Implement the emergency action plan. Confirm the availability of emergency and support services. Communicate and work effectively with partner organizations, and implement actions to address the emergency at the appropriate level with clear communication channels. Hopefully, not all events that you have managed will have experienced an emergency situation, but you have to be prepared for a crisis occurring. So, with this assessment criterion, demonstrate your preparedness for managing a crisis at your event. Assessment Criterion 10 requires you to demonstrate your ability to implement risk-based security decisions and to coordinate with security providers. This criterion covers crowd management, threat assessment, and security coordination. Unfortunately, events are subject to a variety of security threats, including terrorist attacks, theft of personal belongings and event equipment, alcohol and drug-related incidents, crowd violence, and illicit trading of prohibited goods. The evidence you could include in your portfolio to demonstrate your capability to manage security at an event includes security plans for your event and a security risk assessment document, crowd management strategies, evidence of your liaison with security providers or government authorities, security briefing documents for your events team, incident reports from previous events where there has been a security incident, third-party testimonies from security contractors to confirm your preparedness for managing security issues at your events. For your portfolio of evidence, write a reflective statement that explains how you manage security risks at your events. To pass this assessment criterion, you will need to demonstrate your ability to plan and coordinate event security, how you liaise effectively with security professionals or authorities, and how you manage security-related incidents and apply risk-based security measures. In summary, to manage security at an event, you need to undertake a security risk assessment that identifies potential threats to your event and where your venue is vulnerable to security problems occurring. When you have developed your security plan, you can create a comprehensive security strategy, which contains clear, actionable security protocols that your event team can implement. The security threats your event might face will be determined by the type of event you are staging. A large-scale outdoor music festival, attracting thousands of participants, will have many potential security threats, compared to a small-scale business event being staged in a purpose-built conference venue, with a small number of delegates. But irrespective of the type of event and its scale, you need to identify the potential security threats that could occur during the staging of your event. For assessment criterion 11, you have to prove your ability to measure your event outcomes, to analyze the performance of your event teams, and then to apply lessons learned to future events. Event evaluation is essential for your continuous improvement and professional growth as an event manager. There are different elements that you can evaluate to determine the success of your events. Performance metrics include key performance indicators, KPIs, that will indicate if your business objectives for staging the event have been met, for example, whether the target number of participants was actually achieved for attending the event. Participant feedback, based on post-event surveys, will indicate the satisfaction of attendees with your event. A post-event financial analysis will produce data on the profit that was generated from the event. You will pass this criterion if you can demonstrate that you evaluate your events against SMART objectives: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. That you use appropriate methods to determine the success of your events, and that you analyze the data from the evaluation instruments you use to incorporate into the planning and management of your next event. In summary, there are many ways to evaluate the success of an event. As an event manager, you need to understand if the event has achieved its KPIs, especially the financial objectives. Most events will use a participant satisfaction questionnaire, but remember that all event stakeholders can provide feedback on the success of an event, so include your event team, event sponsors, event vendors, and other stakeholders in your post-event evaluation process. Assessment criterion 12 requires you to provide independent, third-party validation of your expertise as an event manager. In your portfolio of evidence, provide testimonials from at least 2 satisfied clients. If you have received industry awards or prizes, include these in your portfolio as well. To pass this criterion, you will need to provide comprehensive, documentary feedback from your external event stakeholders. The final assessment criterion is to have an online interview with an APIEM assessor to discuss your portfolio of evidence to become an APIEM Certified Event Manager. So, when your portfolio of evidence is complete, submit it online to the apiemacademy@gmail.com. We will then review it and arrange an online meeting with you on a mutually convenient date and time. There is no examination to become an APIEM Certified Event Manager. You will be accredited on the basis of your portfolio of evidence and the successful completion of your interview. This is a pass-fail certification. All assessment criterion must be passed to receive accreditation. Candidates not achieving a pass at their first attempt may resubmit again in order to be accredited. Success in this accreditation requires comprehensive documentation across all assessment criteria. Your portfolio should tell the complete story of your event management expertise. Gather documents, photos, videos, and communications from your events. Structure the evidence by each assessment criteria. Write accounts that explain your evidence in relation to each assessment criterion. Obtain third-party testimonials and confirmations of your experience as an event manager. Achieving APIEM Certified Event Manager accreditation requires more than just submitting documents. Your evidence must demonstrate competency, professionalism, and alignment with UK national occupation standards for the events industry. Address every aspect of each assessment criterion with relevant, detailed evidence, for example, plans, schedules, contracts, risk assessments, reports, and communications demonstrating your planning, coordination, and management expertise. Provide clear, professional, and well-organized materials that tell a coherent story. Include photos and videos showing setup, live operations, team coordination, and event execution phases. Include testimonials and third-party confirmations that verify your competence. The testimonials should come from external stakeholders such as clients, suppliers, and venues. Provide written narratives explaining your decision-making, problem-solving, leadership style, and lessons learned. When completed, submit your portfolio of evidence, in digital format, to apiemacademy@gmail.com. Keep in touch with APM through our social media on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please ask any questions you have. Best wishes for great success on becoming an APM accredited event manager.